We are going to finish up with Patti Stobaugh. We wanted to bring Patti here to tell her story of being prepared for emergency situations.
Hey everybody. So my name is Patti Stobaugh, as Marissa said. A little bit about me. My background is in accounting. I spent 25 years in corporate accounting, and my husband, when our youngest child left for college, my husband was like, "You hate what you do," which he's right. I wanted to be a physical therapist, but I pass out when I see blood. So I had an A in lecture in anatomy and an F in lab. And so my anatomy professor came to find me one day and said, "Just leave, I'll give you a B. Just leave, you got to change your major." I didn't know anything about accounting. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I was putting myself through school. I loved math. And so I thought, well, I don't want to teach school because I'll get mad at some kid's parents, not the kid, and which was still a wise decision, trust me. So I thought, well, I'll major in accounting. They didn't have anything to do with each other. So I grew up with my grandmother teaching me to bake, my German grandmother. And when I got out of high school during that time, so I graduated high school in '76, got out of college in '81 because I, had extra time for classes that I had to make up. It wasn't the best thing to go into food at that time. It was looked down on, really, unless you were a man. So anyhow, I found myself with an accounting degree. I forged ahead with it. Spent a few years staying at home when my kids were little. And I'm not a good full-time mom. They'll tell you I was much happier. We were all happier when I was working a little bit. So when our youngest left for college, I just quit my job. I gave him a 1-year notice because I was CFO of the company, and it was a hard position to fill. And the next thing I knew, I bought a bakery that was going out of business. And here we are. So, January 15th of this year, this is what happened. We had an ice and snowstorm in our community, and I want to start out by saying this was not our first fire. When my husband, he was pretty close out of school. In 1980, he started a restaurant named Stoby. Our last name is Stobaugh. 4 years later, and that was in the town that we live in, Conway, Arkansas. 4 years later, he started another one 45 minutes up the road in Russellville, Arkansas. And so I married him after he had started the restaurant business. So I'd kind of play around. I'd hang out with Mrs. Smith, who made all the pies and cakes. And I'd spend a lot of Sunday afternoons with her, but never working in the restaurant because it wasn't going to work for us as a couple for him to be my boss. Those of you that work with your spouses, you have to divide, you just have to divide the duties, you do. And there was no way to divide the duties unless we kicked out Mrs. Smith, and she was his adopted mother, so to speak. So we were at home. I was getting ready to get in the shower. It was, this was the first picture I took when I got there. I got a phone call from the Conway Fire Department, or 911, excuse me, saying that we needed a key holder to get to the building. They couldn't get to the building. I looked at my security cameras and my bakery that's next to our restaurant in Conway. There were firemen inside. I'm like, well, they're inside. I'm looking at them. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. We have 2 locations. We had opened our second location in our production facility in September of 2019. You know what happened? Early 2020. So, yeah, it was an interesting few years. So then the gal goes, oh wait, we dispatched the fire department to the wrong building. So my husband and I head down our 45-degree driveway that was solid ice at that point. Our neighbors, we live by a lake, our neighbors' gas meter is at the end of our driveway. And so we were sliding sideways down the driveway. We didn't hit the gas meter. We made it here. Had a little bit bigger of a disaster. So the problem was, and these are just a few pictures. I'm just going to go through them quickly. This is the front of the bakery. This was a little bit later in the evening. This was a professional photographer happened to be driving by and stopped out to take pictures. It was 10 degrees. For Arkansas, 10 degrees is cold. The firemen, it was terrible. I felt so sorry for them. This was the aftermath of what happened. That's a 6,500 square foot building, and then where you see that wall going up, that was all attic coming over. And that was mostly storage that we just let people use. So yeah, it didn't end well. When we had a fire at the restaurant, it was caused by a roof vent motor. And that fire didn't count against us because the company that manufactured the motor had to pay for the entire claim. We rebuilt our restaurant, which was in a house that had been built in the early 30s. It had been a restaurant for 8 years. There was so much residual grease, et cetera, in this building that it just went up like so quick. But we were able to build back. We doubled the size. It was wonderful. It was hard for a little bit, but we had good insurance, we thought. That's another thing to be thinking about. But it was okay. It wasn't devastating. After that fire, we met with a new insurance company and we were going through everything. And my husband made the comment, if either restaurant goes down, if the bakery goes down, we would be okay. We can move in another facility. If the production facility goes down, it'll be Armageddon. We had Armageddon. So in this facility, we did 98% of our baking for our bakery. We also supplied all the desserts for the restaurant. High volume restaurant, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Did all their croissants, pastries, Danish, cinnamon rolls, you name it, we did it. Pies, cakes, everything. So when we got home that night, it was like, what are we gonna do? I mean, we've got to keep the restaurant going. We're very well known for our cheese dip. We make both the cheese dips that the restaurant serves. We make their breakfast gravy. We made their gravy for chicken tenders. Smoked all of their meats. I mean, everything was gone. And by midnight, we were just kind of getting a little goofy. Like, I can't believe this has happened. Because how do you believe? And I don't know, have I mentioned yet, our fire alarm didn't go off. So our company, Interface, don't ever use them. Sorry, I'm going to say it every time. They had dialed in at 2 to do their daily check. All systems were good. By 5 o'clock, the fire had started. We were able to go back on our security cameras and see. And we didn't get a call until 6:20 that somebody saw smoke outside the building. We were able to determine the fire started right in this area where there was a 25 by 25 walk-in cooler that was being replaced. It was, we'd already ordered a new one. We were luckily able to cancel it. But the drain line that came off the cooler, and we're in a very humid area. I know all coolers put off water, but ours put off more. Scott can tell you, here in the South, our humidity is so high. That's what caught on fire. And had we just gotten a smoke alarm at that time, the firemen said we would put it out. We would have been able to put it out within, 5 minutes. You would have had a lot of smoke damage, but we would have been fine. Instead, the fire burned an hour and 15, 20 minutes. You know how much paper goods that you have. Imagine that much paper goods for 2 bakeries and 2 restaurants, and you're buying by the pallet to keep your costs down. That's really, and the paper goods were along this back wall. Now on this side of the wall, there's a Nationwide insurance, which is kind of funny, Nationwide by your side. Well, they are. There they are. On the other side is a 5,000 square foot music store. All of their instruments were smoke damaged, and they've been heavenly to work with. So has our insurance company. I will say that they have been wonderful. So let me tell you what we did is we made the decision that night to shut the bakeries down temporarily, and decided that we would have to do all of our cheese dips, gravy, smoked the meat in the building that was next to the restaurant. We do twice weekly runs to our restaurant in Russellville to take the products that we make. Russellville started making their own desserts. They were making most of them, not all of them, but the things that we didn't send. We had to go back to cooking our cheese dip in 10-gallon pots on top of the stove instead of 60-gallon steam kettles. So you can imagine the consistency issues, on and on and on. Our steam kettles just came in week before last. They're still not being used yet because they're getting them hooked up, but we're almost there. So this was mid-January. So in March, David and I went out of town. We went to Colorado, rented an Airbnb, just lay it all out about what are we going to do. The only solution that made sense was just to shut the bakeries down. Now, imagine those of you that own your bakeries being told today you cannot bake anymore. It's devastating. But I have a few pointers that I hope will help you navigate through the insurance and navigate what your next phase of life is going to be, because it's tough. This could have been a tornado. We're in Tornado Alley. Same thing. We would have been faced with the same decisions. After the first fire at the restaurant, we moved everything to the cloud. So all of our accounting, our point of sale system, everything, inventory control, recipes, everything was in the cloud. So we didn't have any servers that hadn't been backed up properly that, then you've lost recipes that you've had for a gajillion years. A mistake we made is we had very important papers in here. I also had all of my Christmas ornaments my kids had ever made in here. So, you got to be careful and spread stuff around. Papers, they're just gone. All of it, it was just gone. We've been able to recreate pretty much everything. But that's what I spent the next few months doing, was dealing with the insurance company and getting the paperwork recreated, working with our CPA firm. Because even though that's my background, I don't do that part. I'm out of that mess. So when we were in Colorado in March, we just realized that probably the best thing to do was just call it a day on the bakery. I had 29 employees that were bakery employees when the fire happened. 8 of them were pastry chefs. Where would I find 8 pastry chefs once we rebuilt? This was a historic building that would require all of the permitting with the historic district in addition to the city. So we'd be looking at 18 months to rebuild. Building costs are ridiculous right now. So where would I find those 8 pastry chefs, much less the rest of the employees? You guys know finding employees right now is not that easy, especially finding pastry chefs is not that easy. So we just made the decision in March that we would close. Okay, so let me ask you first, do any of you practice fire drills? Look at you guys. So we've got country club and we've got industrial. I love it. Practice fire drills. We had one employee in the building. He did not notice the smoke. It was 20-foot ceilings. He didn't notice the smoke because every day at 4 p.m. we put on meat to smoke overnight. We slow smoked our meat for 16 hours. So he was in the building, he smelled smoke, he didn't think a thing about it. He was leaving early because we were closed the next day because it had snowed. And when you live in central Arkansas, you don't know how to deal with snow. You just don't. So practice your fire drills. Make sure in every spot that you have an employee that they can get out of the building. Where he was, where the kitchen that he worked in, we had just had another door put in that should something happen in the room that you only had one entrance in and out of that room. But that was where our revent oven was. So if something should have happened in there, he could have possibly been blocked from getting out. Make sure you don't have any spots like that in there. Have a plan. So if it happens, you have a disaster and you're at work, let's say something blows up. We've never had a 60-gallon steam kettle blow up in 44 years of business, but it could happen, you know? What kind of mess is that going to cause? Make sure you know you have a meeting spot, where to go. So that's just, nobody died, and I should have started off by saying that. Everything else can be fixed. When you get back to your bakery, please take your cell phone, like you two are together here. Take your cell phone. One of you open up drawers. Every drawer you have in your building, open it up and video it. And then send that video to the cloud, send it to your friends, send it to whoever. When you start having to make a list for the insurance company and for your tax return, it is amazing how quickly stuff adds up. So just to talk numbers with you, this building was built before electricity. We had $1 million in coverage on it. To rebuild, current building costs are in between $400 and $450 a square foot. Insurance companies are getting away from doing complete replacement cost when you have a total loss. And they're also getting, and it's because of all the catastrophic claims that have been happening. When you renew your policy this year, check what your deductible is on your roof, because now it's a percentage of the cost of your building coverage, not your cost, but what coverage you have on your building. So I'm kind of getting jumbled here, and I need to slow my brain down a little bit. But we had, so our what do you want to call it, contents were 1/3 of what our building coverage was. I never considered we'd have a total loss there. This building had been there for a gajillion years. What was, it wasn't going to happen. When I finished my spreadsheet, our contents in there were $700,000. So that's a big loss. But the other thing is you've got to have all of it documented for your insurance company in order to get your full amount, and then also on your tax return, because we will take a loss of that amount on our tax return. But you know the IRS, you know how much documentation they want. It's just a nightmare. And I've been here and I saw some pieces in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, we had another 12-gallon steam kettle that I know I didn't put on that list. It's just, you cannot remember it all. You just can't. Update your socials immediately, because you cannot believe how angry people are that you're not open, even though you've just totally burned down. It's a pretty sad state that we live in. Update Google, update all Insta, Facebook, whatever else that you have. Get it updated immediately. I had signs made to put in front of the bakery, not the one that burned down. It was obvious we weren't open, right? But I had signs made at the other to say, closed temporarily. Check Facebook for updates. That did help us a lot. Your phone messages, I forgot to do that for probably 2 weeks. And then I'm listening to people calling. They have no idea that the building had burned down. We'd been on the news for days and days and days. I mean, it was a pretty spectacular fire when it was really up and going, and flames were 40 feet in the air. And so, it bleeds, it leads, right? And that's what happened to us. Slow news day. Review your insurance policy. Whatever you think you have in contents, double it. Because I have gone back to the restaurants and listed, I'm able to go in there and say, oh, well, we have this, and this. And in each case, just double that. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more in insurance, but it's not that much. What other words of advice can I give you? Just don't let it happen. I mean, we were remodeling this building, It did not have a sprinkler system because we'd been there for so long. And the sprinkler system had been ordered, had not gotten put in. We were able to cancel it, thank goodness. Yeah, it's a shame. The reality is I'm 66 now, and I would be close to 68 if we rebuild. Do I really want to do this forever? It's not the way I wanted to go out of business, but it is what happened. So we have just kind of rolled with it. Yeah, so I will be glad to answer any questions if I can help with anything. Amy?
So when you take pictures of everything
Yes.
in the drawers,
Yes.
and this is like the first thing I'm going to do when I get back,
Yes.
because I can't believe the amount of stuff that I have. I kind of know what I have, but this is a great idea. We go home, immediately take pictures, right?
Right.
And I know I have receipts for everything, but when you are documenting for the insurance company, are they going to require all those paper receipts to go with what's in those drawers?
So what our CPA told us was the IRS is going to understand the reasonableness of a cost of something. You know, like if you say, I have 50 number 5 decorating tips, and you put down that it was $5,000, they're going to know that's wrong. So they told me not to worry about anything that was really under $5,000 about producing the receipts. Anything over 5, you're going to have the receipts for. Ours burned up because the fireproof filing cabinets failed. So yeah, so ours burned up. But that is the guideline they gave us. I would say you need to talk to your accountant about what they want.
So is it valuable to take, if you're going to take picture videos of that stuff, to just send it to your accountant?
I don't know that they want
What's
it.
it that they would actually take that?
Yeah. I mean, if you burned it off on a CD right now, or a DVD, right now, that'd be great, but how many people have DVD players in their house or on their computer anymore? So, did you have a follow-up there?
I was thinking about it, but I guess if you have the video, at least you can go back and say, I'm going to call Revent and go around and get the receipts from with that type. I guess you can do that if you remember.
And that's what I did. You know, I called Revent, I called Rondo, I called all the people that we had bought equipment from to get things reproduced. One thing, check your security coverage. See how long that stays, that they keep a hard copy of your security footage. Our company only kept it for 2 weeks, and then it was written over. Luckily, I had burned it off onto my computer, and so I was able to give that information. But I tried about 3 weeks after the fire sending it to one of the adjuster, and you'll have an adjuster for everything. I mean, literally, we've dealt with like 6 different adjusters at one time. But when I tried sending them that, and they said they couldn't open it, and they didn't let me know. And then they said, oh, well, we got in, but it's blank. That's when I found out. So, yeah, I mean, we thought we were good. We had insurance. I mean, we had a security system that monitors anything that's refrigerated in our buildings, whether it's too high, too low, smoke detectors, smoke alarms, everything. None of that went off. Nothing. We didn't get a bad signal on the walk-in freezer that, oh, it's hot in here. Nothing. So I don't know. I don't know what happened.
And it was a motor inside of the walk-in?
So I don't know what kind of refrigeration you have, Mark, but we had the walk-in was inside the building, and this building used to be a feed store. So it was on a crawl space that was wood in a lot of places that hadn't had the wood taken out in cement poured. Like underneath all of our walk-ins, we had to have cement, the wood taken up in cement floors. And under the reef vent had to be a cement floor just to handle, the weight. but there were still spots of wood around there. So on the back of our big walk-in, is what we called it, where the drain motor was, where the pipe ran out that was draining the condensation, that caught fire.
The great up there.
Yeah,
That's what.
who would have thought? Okay. Any other questions? What's everybody gonna do when they get home? Make a video. Yes,
Well,
have 2 people.
Also really want to thank Patti because I think, it's obvious her resiliency is so inspirational in a lot of ways, and it can't be an easy story to tell.
It's the
And to
first
be able
time I've told it.
to turn this
Yeah.
into an educational experience is amazing. So thank you for being willing
Yes.
to do that.
Yes,
It's really
if it could save